welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, then welcome, and if you are a returning subscriber or viewer, then welcome back. As you know from my channel, I do all things baby, motherhood, hauls, beauty, so if you do like that kind of thing, then obviously please do stick around, and if you are new, please do make sure you're subscribed and just click the little Udemy flip down there. But in today's video, this one's been quite highly requested from me doing my birth video, which I'd done a couple of months ago. If you're already with my channel, you would have known that I released my birth video. If you haven't seen it, I will link it down below so that you can go and watch that if you want. And I said I might do our neonatal journey, but I was waiting to do it because I was waiting to have my birth review meeting, and if I was going to film that, I wanted to kind of do it in order. So I wanted to do like my birth, the review, and then go on to like neonatal. I'm not going to share my birth review with you. It's nothing bad. I'm not trying to be that person that's like, oh, I'm not going to share it. It just made me a little bit more emotional and vulnerable than I anticipated, and I just don't really want to talk about it. I know that sounds really selfish, but yeah, I hope you understand, and maybe one day I will talk about it, but right now I'm just not comfortable with it. But yeah, I would definitely recommend doing one. If you guys are thinking about it, then obviously do contact your local NHS service. I think they call them listening services or birth reviews, and just see if they do it. I found it beneficial, but obviously I wasn't prepared for how much it was going to knock me. So yeah, anyways, I'm digressing, so let's get back to my point. So this one is going to be our neonatal journey with Tommy. So if you don't know, if you haven't watched my birth review, Tommy was born at 31 plus 1, so he was born 9 weeks early. So he was, I think when you work out in months, he was like 2 months early. I think I was exactly 7 months when I had him. Yeah, so it was a bit of a scary time. But I covered this all off in the birth review. So yes, he did go to neonatal straight after he was born, so I thought I would take you through that journey with us. So following on from me having him, I'm just going to get comfy in it. I'm just sat in his room. Thought it was the apt place to do it, in his room. So yeah, following on from him being born, obviously I was still on the bed waiting to be stitched up, and they had him on one of those like resuscitator beds. Sounds scarier than it actually is, but he was breathing on his own, which was fantastic. I think they had to give him a bit of assistance, and then from what I can remember, because obviously it is all a bit hazy for me, they took him straight away. I think he was in the room for about 5 minutes, and then they took him up. So he was born at 9:14, and I think we got to go and see him maybe around 11-ish, I want to say, which was fine because obviously it gave me time to get up and have some food, because literally as soon as the gas and air had worn off from my stitches and obviously the shock had gone, I was ravenous. So yeah, they brought me the classic tea and toast, which I had, which was lovely. But yeah, so we got the call at about 11 saying that we could go up, so we went up. I got taken up in a wheelchair, and he was in, so they have like 3 rooms or bays, we'll call them bays, on one side, and then they have 3 side rooms on the other. So one of the bays at the back was like the COVID bay, so if a child had COVID, or parents had COVID, that's the room that they would go in. It was never used, mind, the whole time I was there. The first bay is your really sort of high dependency like room, and your second room is sort of your middle base, like you're not sort of really unwell that you need to be in that first room. So when we went up, Tommy was actually in that first room, obviously because he'd just been born. They were still doing all the checks on him, and it's quite close to the reception, so obviously they can hear all his monitors, everything. So yeah, we went up and met him like properly. He had all of the wires on him, and he had a CPAP oxygen thing on like his nose, which, if you don't know what that is, so it opens up their like airways and their lungs, so it doesn't assist with them breathing. They are breathing on their own, which is great, and it's not giving them oxygen. It just helps them open their airways a bit more, because obviously they are very young and their lungs are still very immature. Now he was only on that for 6 hours, which was amazing, all things considered. He was on that for 6 hours. Yeah, he was on it by the time, well, he was off it, not on it. He was off it by the time, well, he was definitely off it by the time I'd gone back to bed in the ward, which was early evening. So yeah, he'd definitely been off it by then. But he stayed in this room anyway, and then I went back to bed on the Saturday night. Adam had to go home because he can't stay with me in the ward anyway. I think we left him at about 8-9 o'clock that night. That was when we first held him as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to insert pictures actually. I'm a bit like, oh, it's such a weird time. And I've got so many pictures of him in neonatal that I have shared a few on my Instagram. But yeah, if I feel comfortable, I'll share these pictures as I'm like talking through them. And if I'm not, then just know that that's the first time I held him. Adam had a cuddle as well. And then the next day Adam came back in the morning. I woke up at 6 because I was still harvesting all my colostrum, because I hadn't done any of this yet, obviously, because I hadn't made it to 37 weeks, because they wanted to give it to him, so that was fine. I was doing that. You don't really get much help, I won't lie. I was just kind of left to my own devices to do it. I just YouTubed it, I won't lie. So yeah, we went back in and saw him. He was still off the CPAP. He was still doing really well. And then he got moved on either the end, so I got discharged on day 2, so the Sunday, and I came home quickly to like have a bath and like wash my hair, because, well, obviously because I've been discharged, I didn't have anywhere to sleep or have any facilities anyway, and I didn't have anything on me because we hadn't packed a hospital bag. So yeah, I came home, I wanted to get changed. He was asleep at the time, so I came back, got a fresh pair of like clothes, freshened up. We went back at about 4. I think I got discharged at 2 and we were back there by about 4. That was the day we named him as well, because all the wires had then come off his face. By this point, apart from his feeding NG tube, everything was off his face, so we could actually see him, because we didn't really want to name him until we had seen him. So yeah, I knew what I wanted to call him, to be fair. It's really bad. It's not bad. I didn't, when I first saw him I was like, oh, he definitely looks like, you know, this name. And I was like, but I won't tell Adam because I don't want him to be like led by me, and I'll just, you know. But I was like stood there thinking, oh my god, like I think I know what his name is. I like how I'm saying this, like he's not been born or something. You know what his name is. So I was like, we were going through the list and we were taking ones off. I just remember Adam standing there going, he's a Tommy, isn't he? And I was like, yeah. Which was good because that's exactly what I wanted to call him. But yeah, so then I came home that night, slept like a log. We rang when we got home just to check he was okay, because you're allowed to ring any time, so that's great. And then it kind of all went quite swimmingly until day 5. So he was still fine, he was still off his CPAP. He was having caffeine supplements for his heart rate, just to keep it like steady, because sometimes with preemies they dip a bit. So he was having caffeine every day, and I think they were giving him, because at the time they thought I might have had an infection, they were giving him antibiotics in case any infection had passed from me to him. They were just being careful and giving him antibiotics, so that was fine. But yeah, day 5 was where it all sort of changed a little bit. So I was at home in the morning, so I would go in at like 10ish every day, 9:30, 10, and I'd stay till like 8 at night. So what I'd do in the morning, I would express my breast milk for him to take him, because his stomach was so poorly and immature really, that he could really only tolerate my breast milk. He couldn't tolerate formula. Now looking back, it's probably because he had a dairy allergy as well, but you know, we move. And also, just to clarify there as well, because Adam is dairy free, I have hardly any dairy in my diet, so that's why it wouldn't have shown up in my milk, so he could have my milk. But yeah, we got a call whilst I was pumping saying like, you guys need to come in, he's, you know, he's a bit unwell. We might have to transfer him to a different hospital, and that was it. I was up, the pump was off. I'm not even sure I took it in with me. I don't actually think I did. We went in and they said, so when they're fed through an NG tube, this is disgusting when I say it, but you get used to it when you're there. Before you do a feed, you have to aspirate. So basically what that means is you pull out their stomach contents into like a syringe to see that it's all been digested, because it looks the same way if it's been digested basically. Yeah, is it a funky colour, anything like that, and you then keep a bit, you put it back in to their stomach, I know, but then you keep a bit behind because you have to test the pH level. You get a little strip and you can test the pH on it. That also gives you an indication of any infections, anything like that. Now when they'd aspirated him, it was green, which obviously isn't good. So they suspected that he had something called neck. Let me see if I can find the, I'm probably not even about to say it. I think it's called necrotizing enterocolitis. But they call it neck, like NEC, like Birmingham NEC, neck. And what is it? So it's a serious condition that can affect newborn babies where tissue in the bowel becomes inflamed. It can be a small part of the bowel, but also the whole bowel can be infected. Sometimes tissue in parts of the bowel will become damaged and die, which will need to be removed by surgery. And it says, sadly, some babies will die of neck, some babies will be too unwell for surgery and may not get better with treatment, but your healthcare professionals will tell you the risks. So obviously, given his prematurity, they obviously were a bit worried about him. So they said, look, we are going to send you to Addenbrooke's Hospital, which is a specialist hospital, and they have a specialist neonatal unit, and let me tell you, this neonatal unit is huge. And so we got transferred in an ambulance. I went with him. It was all a bit of a whirlwind, to be fair. I don't remember loads of it. I just remember when we got there, they said, look, we've got to like check him in, do all his paperwork and stuff. Like, you guys go and get like coffee or some food. And he's not even been looked at yet, so like you're not going to know anything. And I was like, okay, let's just go and take a minute. I think we had a Burger King or something, or something like the hospital restaurant food. I don't really know. But yeah, we then went back and he was seen by a consultant. But they obviously had to do all his blood works and stuff, so we still didn't really know anything when we went home. But then the next day they said that he didn't have neck. They just think he had a bit of an infection there, but it wasn't neck, which was amazing. He'd been nil by mouth for 24 hours as well by this point. Excuse me. And they said that if the inflammation or infection didn't go away, then he'd have to have a long line in to get his nutrients, which basically means like putting it through your arm and then down into your stomach. And now I'd seen them do it to a baby opposite, and I was like, no, I don't want this to be happening like to my baby. Obviously, if it needed to, I would have let them, but yeah, I was a bit worried about that. But he didn't need to have that done. He had his feeds put back on from 3 meals to and then it was upped by 3 meals like every day. So by the time he came back to Bedford, he was on about 12 millilitres of milk a day, I think, which for us at the time was massive, like huge for us. But yeah, so he spent 5 days in Addenbrooke's neonatal unit. Now, if you want your child to go to any neonatal unit, it's there. Honestly, if I could have a baby again, well, I'm going to have a baby again at some point, and I knew I could get there in time to have a baby, I would literally go to that hospital all day long. Like, they were so amazing. He had his hernia operation there as well, which obviously isn't his neonatal journey, but they're just amazing. Like, because I went with him on day 5, I hadn't had my 5-day check with a midwife, so they done that for me. They didn't care that, well, I didn't care. It was fine that it wasn't my normal hospital. They were amazing. They checked me over. I actually felt really unwell one day, so they thought I had low iron, so I went and had a blood test there as well. I didn't. They just think it was like the stress. But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible hospital. Like, I literally can't sing its praises enough. The neonatal unit is incredible. We could both go and visit. Obviously, due to COVID and stuff, loads of different places are so different. But yeah, we could go and visit. We could both go if we needed to, if we wanted to. So that was really good. And then I think by the Tuesday they said he could come back to Bedford, which was amazing. They loaded me up with all my breast milk that I've been doing, which was loads. And we came back when he was 10 days old to Bedford, which was, it was just insane. Like, I was so happy driving back. Now, he had to go in one of the side rooms when we came back because he'd obviously left the unit and stuff. They had to test him for COVID. MRSA and a couple of other things, and until his results came back he had to go in that separate room, which I actually quite liked because then you were on your own. You just had your own room with him and it was lovely. He was still in an incubator at this point, so everything was still being done through the incubator. The one thing I will say, if your child is transferred between hospitals, is in Addenbrooke's they were very sort of wanted you to be hands-on, so like they taught us how to aspirate him, they taught us how to feed him through the tube, they taught us obviously to change him with the incubator open. So we like thought we had it down, like we were like, yeah, we're great at this now. Going back to Bedford, they were like, no, you need to do it closed, and then they wouldn't let us feed him or anything like that. So that was a bit hard, like getting that sort of taken away from you. But yeah, that was a bit hard, I would say. I think if this happened to me again, I'd be obviously a lot more confident in standing up for myself. I'd be like, nah, sod off, like I'll show you that I can do it. And now, having had one already in neonatal, I'll be like, this is a walk in the park, guys. But yeah, we went back to having to like change him through the holes in the incubator, which is really hard. And then what happened? So he was in that side room for about, I want to say like 3-4 days. No more than a week. Whilst he was in this side room as well, he went through a bit of a stage of being quite sick after all his feeds, which worried me a little bit. And of course it happened on the one day where my friend had said, look, you need a break, I'm coming to take you for dinner, like we're going to Nando's, I'm coming to pick you up. And I was like, yeah, no, that'd be great, like that's exactly what I need. And that was the day he decided to start playing up. And she'll even tell you that all day I was texting her like, oh, can we push it back an hour? Can we push, I can't leave him. Can we push it back an hour? And then Adam came in and he was like, you're going, like you're not staying. So I cried a lot. I don't think I left the hospital till about 7:45. My poor best friend. But yeah, I left about 7:45 to go for dinner. Rang when I got home. I was like, is he okay? But yeah, I think that was kind of all that happened in that side room. What else happened? No, nothing really. That was it. It was just like his sickness that we were trying to get under control. At that point he'd been put on vitamins as well. Excuse me. Because obviously he would be lacking in some vitamins. What else happened next? Then when he was transferred back into like what I call Bay 2, I think he had a few more days in an incubator in there, and then they moved him to a heated cot to see if he could regulate his temperature on his own. So they check him obviously with his obs all the time, because the whole thing of coming home was that he needed to be able to regulate his own temperature and things like that. So he moved on to a heated cot next. Sorry about that little break there. Tommy was downstairs with Adam and he was trying to crawl. So I just quickly ran down to see that. But yeah, now where did I get to? Oh, I think we got him going back into the heated cot, didn't we? So yeah, he was in Bay 2 in his heated cot, regulating his temperature, which he was doing perfectly. We still had to like dress him in like baby grows and hats and stuff to do his temperatures and everything. But yeah, from then it was pretty sort of plain sailing. He had to have a few scans done at this point. He must have had, I think he had a kidney scan, and I think he might have had a heart scan as well at this point, just to check that everything was working, because they thought he had a slight heart murmur, which he did, but it kind of sorted itself out, which was really weird. Weird but great. His kidneys were fine. I think that was, he had a brain scan at one point. He had one at Addenbrooke's as well. Good news, he has one. But yeah, it was all pretty sort of plain sailing. So when he was born, we were always told that he was never going home before he was 34 weeks gestation, basically. Because at 34 weeks, that's where babies learn the sucking motion, to either bottle feed or breastfeed. And they learn that in the womb anyway, whilst they're there. So whether he was or he wasn't, that's when they do it. So they weren't going to try and feed him through anything other than his tube until 34 weeks. So we knew we were there for 3 weeks at least. But they were on it. The day he turned 34 weeks, I had to have the bottle ready because I wasn't going to breastfeed. And that was it. It was all systems go. We were literally trying to feed him. It took a bit of getting used to. Obviously, he didn't really know. He was a bit like, oh. And we had to sort of get our technique ready. So we were like holding him like you would, feeding him. But it obviously takes quite a lot of energy for him. And obviously because he was so small, he'd just fall asleep halfway through. And we were like, why isn't he finishing them? Because when we were ringing in the morning, they were like, oh yeah, he finished all his bottles overnight. And we were like, well, how? Because we're feeding him and he's not. So then we tried sort of holding him sort of away from us and then feeding him, and he seemed to finish them a lot better. We also in this time had to take in his car seat for the car, they call it the car seat challenge. So what they do is they sit the baby in your car seat, and they hook him back up to the monitors. Yes, also at this point he was off all of his monitors, so he didn't have like his heart monitor on anymore, he didn't have his oxygen on anymore, there was nothing. So they put it back on and they sort of watched them for about 20 minutes to half hour, because that's your average car journey with a newborn. So they done that. We were there for one of them. They done two. The reason they done two is because we don't think we set up the car seat well enough. So we have the Joey 360 spin. We'd set him quite upright in it and it should have been a bit more tilted. Once they tilted it, he had clear readings and it was fine. Not that he didn't have clear readings from ours, like saying like he couldn't breathe or something. They just like it to be at a certain, I think his oxygen needs to be over 93, and he was literally at like 92. I think his heart rate was fine, it was just that oxygen, and obviously it's because he was slumped forward. Also at this point he'd had the most horrendous blood test I've ever seen in my life. We'd come back to, well, be told that he was having a blood test, so we obviously stayed with him, but this doctor did not know what he was doing. I've never heard a baby scream like it. Like, my insides were breaking. And literally as soon as he'd finished, even the nurses were like, what are you doing? And I think he's doing this heel prick blood test. It wasn't the heel prick test, but all of their blood, because he didn't have any cannulas in either, all of their bloods are done out of their heels. So that was pretty horrendous. And when I picked him up, he like, imagine how tiny his arms were. He like literally held onto my neck and like wouldn't let me put him down. which was, yeah, that was just horrendous. I just remember leaving the hospital that night going, oh my god, like if he has any more of these, I can't be in the room. I think he had a couple more actually before he left, and I left the room. But so he's done his car seat challenge. He's had that blood test, which was horrific. And then what happened next? He was still doing his bottle feeding, which was getting better and better by the day. I think we were bottle feeding him for, must have been about 5-6 days. And then his like, not carer, I don't know what you'd call him, his nurse that looked after him, she had us that whole week, and she was like, he's going home by the end of this week, like I'm getting him home, like that's it. So we were like, oh my god, like shit. Like the only thing that was in this room was this cot. I don't even think we put the mattress on. Nothing. I mean, I know he wasn't going in there. We hadn't like got sheets for his snooze pod that's in our room. We hadn't got anything. And we hadn't built a lot of stuff either. Also, we needed to go buy lots of clothes because all of his clothes that I brought had started from like £7 or £8. He was £4. So yeah, that was something I'm now prepared for if it happens again, and it's a boy. But yeah, we cracked on with this feeding sort of throughout that week, and then he had to have a couple of scans again. So on the day we thought he was coming home, they done another brain scan, which was fine, and then they were like, oh, we're just going to check his bladder and his kidneys. So I was like, okay. They've been fine. And then they said, oh well, he's holding on to his wee, like babies don't do that, they should just expel it. And I was like, this kid wees like a bloody trooper, like he never doesn't have a wet nappy. She was like, oh, he can't go home, like if he doesn't do that he can't go home. And I was like, are you joking? Like this is the day you said he's coming home. Obviously I wanted him to be perfect to come home, and if he wasn't well then he obviously would have stayed in. But you can imagine, like we've got everything prepared mentally, everything. We were just like, yes, he's coming. In the end, it was fine. They organised a scan and a test 3 days after he came home to check him, and he was absolutely fine. His wee was coming out. But yeah, he was, I think he came home on a Friday? Yes, I think it was a Friday. So I went in the morning, we started packing up all of his stuff, got stuff ready like at home, and yeah, it was a pretty good day. Like I just remember being so happy that day. It was quite late by the time we got home. We were meant to take him home like early afternoon, but because of that scan it kind of delayed it, so we didn't actually end up bringing him home until like 8 maybe. I can actually look because I took a video of us walking out, so I'll tell you the exact time we left. It was 7:30 in the evening we left. Yeah, there, yeah, I don't know if you can see, that's me walking him out there to the car, because we obviously had the car seat that's in the car, we don't have a carry one. But yeah, so he was 3 weeks and 6 days when we took him home, which was just amazing considering how early he was. So we had a pretty decent ride for him being so early. We were very, very lucky, and we obviously do know that every day that we're very, very lucky. But let me tell you, if you have any friends that have gone through like a neonatal journey, and like no one prepares you for that journey. Everyone prepares you for pregnancy, kind of. Everyone kind of prepares you for the birth. No one tells you about a neonatal journey. It was hard. I don't want to do it again. I know I can do it again if I have to. And I know sometimes I like worry about sharing things on my baby page where I say, like, you know, I follow this page called Preemiehood, and they just get it so like on point with some of their like posts and stuff. And I think I follow someone else like the NICU mum or the NICU mummy or something. And again, just like you read it and you're like, oh yes. But yeah, like no one prepares you for what you go through. And it's not even, I mean, it is obviously watching your baby, but I remember getting so annoyed, like beyond annoyed, where I'd see like people on Instagram and Facebook being like, oh, I'm 39 weeks now, like get this baby out of me, I'm done. And I'm like, you don't know how bloody lucky you are, like that your baby's still like okay in your stomach, you've got a healthy pregnancy. Like, you just don't understand. And it really used to, like, oh, I used to get so angry. I probably still do now. But yeah, it's really hard, and I really do obviously sympathise with anyone that's had to go through it. I can't imagine going through it any worse than we did, because even what we went through, which was pretty good on the grand scale of things, it was hard, like mentally and physically. And do I think we'll ever recover from it? Probably not. It's always something I'm going to carry, and I'm sure it's something that Adam's also going to carry around with him. It's really weird, like we used to look at pictures of him in neonatal and be like, oh, like, you know, do you remember that? And it was only recently that when we started looking at them again, not like, oh my god, my baby's not cute, but I think now he's older and he is so much more of a baby, and obviously he's got like all his muscles, because obviously he was just skin for a long time, that at the time we were like, oh my god, like look at him, he's the best thing ever, like what such a cute baby. And now I look back at those pictures and I think, how did I not see how ill he looked? Excuse me. Like, how could I not have seen it? But you just don't. You don't see anything like that. You just see your baby. And it always baffles me when people say to me, like, you know, it's amazing that you got through it, and I could never have done it. And I just think, like, you have no choice. I didn't know any different. I hadn't had a baby before. I didn't know any different, and I had to get through it for my baby. That was the be all and end all of it, to be honest. But yeah, I don't wish it on my worst enemy ever. Like I said, I don't want to go through it again, and I'm, you know, hopeful I might not have to. But we won't know, basically, until I have a second baby. So yeah, it's hard, and that's why I kind of wanted to make this video, so that if anyone either knows that they're going to go on to have a premature baby, or they've just had a premature baby and they just want to hear it from someone that's already been through it, and we're 10 months on now. I hope this helps a little bit. Obviously every baby is different, so people's journeys won't all be the same. They're never going to be the same. There's going to be no identical journeys through anyone's. But yeah, that's just kind of why I wanted to make the video, because I didn't have any of that when I was going through it. I wasn't looking for it really. But some people don't really talk about having a neonatal baby and going through it, because it's a bit of a stigma attached to it, and I don't think there should be. the one thing I would give advice to is if, I mean, all hospitals are different, but my hospital didn't have like a separate sort of bay of beds for women that had had early babies and the babies were on NICU. So I got put into a room with 3 other women that had had their babies and had their babies with them, and that was soul destroying. Like, they harp on about women's maternal mental health and all of this, and I mean, yeah, that just proved that it was utter bollocks, to be honest. Because how you can do that to a woman is beyond me. You know, I can't really explain it to you if you don't see the ward in Bedford. There was ways they could have done it. There was a bay that they could have had, and I think there's a lot of improvements that do need to be made with that in regards to that at Bedford, because I remember having had bleeding at the beginning of my pregnancy. I had to go and have all my HCG levels checked, and it was at a weekend, so I had to go into the labour ward to do it. So you had to walk through all of the beds, or all the bays, not like literally walk through them all, but they all come off the corridor, so you have to walk down the corridor, and you had to go to the back for your blood test, which was fine, kind of, for me. And then I realised once I was back there that that's where all, if you've had like a miscarriage or anything and you have to have a D&C, that's where you have to go. So you're having a miscarriage or have had a miscarriage and you now have to have an operation. You have to be wheeled backwards and forwards through a ward full of women that are having or had their babies. You can hear their babies cry, and you have to go through that. Now, I was very lucky that obviously my pregnancy was fine and it carried on, but I just remember sitting there thinking, like, shit, this isn't good. So yeah, they also need to sort that out, in my opinion. But yeah, if you do obviously either go to Bedford or your own hospital, then please do try and say about having a separate room, or if you can go to a separate bay or anything like that, because I just remember that being horrific for me anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna round this up now because it's been going on for quite a while. You know me, I can jabber on. If you have any questions from my neonatal journey, or like I said, you're going through it and you just want to chat about it, then either contact me via the comments down below, or my social details are in the description box down below, so please do contact me. I will happily obviously talk about it if I can. You know, if I can help, I will help in any way I can. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's not really an enjoyable video, I don't really know why I said that, but I hope you liked this video and you found it informative, and maybe even if you're just watching it because like your friend's going through it or someone in your family's going through it, you know, just be that person that takes them to Nando's. You know, that's the person you need to be. That's the best way I can describe it. Just be that person that just lets them have a break, and you know, but also understands that, you know, for as long as their baby's in hospital, the outside world doesn't exist, because for 4 weeks nothing existed for me apart from that Nando's. That was it. That was the only time I went out, and I think I went out with Adam literally the night before I came home, because they told us obviously he was coming home. So yeah, that was it. Just understand that they can't think about anything else other than their baby, and yeah, it's just a hell of a thing to go through. But yes, I'm going to end this video here. Like I said, if you do like it, do give it a thumbs up, and make sure you are subscribed to my channel. And also, like I said, if anyone wants to contact me to discuss anything, then obviously my DMs are always open, and I'll happily help if I can, or just have a chat with you if I can. And yeah, I hope you appreciated me sharing my story. If it helps just one person, then I've done my job. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!